give shout outs here, right?
Okay, we are live.
All right, let me just refresh.
Unmute us.
Hey everybody joining us online and in person, thank you so much for coming. We still have some more people coming in person. So if you are joining us online, just remember we have attached in the description of the YouTube channel a link to a PDF workbook that we would love for you to download and be able to actually use to kind of follow along with what we're doing. We will also be involved in the chat in the YouTube channel. So if you have any questions or comments or thoughts, or when we go to discussion time, we'll be definitely engaging there to kind of get some interaction going on with you online as well. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We're excited to be here. Can you put on that picture? I want to show.
Yeah, absolutely.
I came across this picture this week, and I thought it was interesting. It's a picture of chapters and the parenting section in the chapters book, completely empty of books. And the first question I ask is, what do we think this is caused by?
Truckers?
Shipping disruptions? Is that the issue? You're thinking shipping? I'm picturing some parent going, I don't know what I'm doing. I can't figure this out. I can't understand what my child is doing. I'm going and buying every single book, and if this doesn't fix it, I don't know what else to do.
Yeah, just clear the shelves. I mean, one of those books has to be good, right?
Must. I don't know if they've read them all or if it worked. We'll have to find out what actually happened. But I thought this was an intriguing photo and tells us just where some of us are and how some of us are feeling. Well, anyways, thank you so much for joining us. The goal of tonight is really to be a time of encouragement for you guys in your parenting journey. We know that this season hasn't been easy on any of us, whether it be personally, but as parents, it's added another level of stress and some discouragement at times, and even maybe some challenging learning some things that we never knew that we had to learn. So what can you expect tonight? We've got encouraging content done in two different sections. My wife Jen and Ron's wife Natalie will lead the first section, and then Ron and I will lead the second section. We're really looking to create an environment for you guys to talk amongst each other as well, so that you can discover more about other people in this parenting journey, so that we can understand that this adventure really only works when we do it together and we don't just do it alone. So we're hoping to be done by 8:30. I know as parents we're always like, hey, I need to know the timeline, so I know when I have to pick up. We can tell the babysitter when we're getting the child. So 8:30 is when we're planning on being done.
You don't usually stretch your timeline, like, the babysitter's there, I should just stay out a bit longer.
Push it. No, I used to be the babysitter, and that didn't really, encourage me to babysit again. So at Gateway here, one of the values that we have that's very high is that we want people to belong in community. And so these events, these seminars that we're putting on, including this parenting one, is really meant to just create another way to belong in our community, to meet some people who are at the same stage of life, and to really just explore this together so that we're not alone in this.
Yeah.
Well, I'll turn it over to Ron.
Yeah, sure. We wanted to just open up the night with an icebreaker and just open discussion again. You can raise your hand, but we were kind of interested to know what you had to learn through this season of life. So over the past 2 years, maybe something that you've either been forced to learn or that you have learned because you've had extra time on your hands. Now, I'll speak to my own experience. I actually started taking French lessons. I don't know if you guys know the app Duolingo. Yeah, Mitch, okay. So I started this streak, and it got up to 7 days, and I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. And then, it all of a sudden became this thing where I wanted to maintain the streak, but also learn more French. So I am proud to say I'm actually up to like 732 days on this streak right now.
That's impressive.
But, yeah, it's really cool. So stay tuned after this stream, and we'll do this all in French, right, guys?
No, you can.
No, we will not.
Okay.
We'll go home. You stay.
So, anybody have anything cool like crocheting? Maybe you took up an extreme sport like
Grocery shopping.
Who got really good at disinfecting groceries?
Who had to learn to be a teacher?
Yeah.
You're like, hey, there we go. All of a sudden, we're all qualified teachers. I love it.
This was one of the things. So,
or underqualified, one of them.
My kids looked at me the one day and they were like, "Dad, is this an imperative sentence?" And I looked at them and I thought, "Ask your mother." Absolutely, please.
I definitely learned that my husband can bake bread.
Hey,
and that's his favorite thing
right. Yeah.
to
Sourdough?
do. Yes.
I tried sourdough.
All
I just
of the
didn't like
kinds.
that foaming stuff sitting in the
Okay.
fridge a lot, so
Yeah, that was
ended up
gross.
getting rid of it.
I hear that's what you had to master was the sourdough.
That was a really trendy COVID thing. I feel like
Yeah.
a lot of people
Yes,
were
there you
doing the whole
go.
bread thing.
Anybody here? Any skills that you've learned?
I was learning about lettering, watercolors, all kind of craft and art.
Oh, so crafts and art, like scrapbooking sort of
Yeah.
kind of thing
Yes.
like that? Hey, that's a good one. Because you had lots of time on your hands, and so it's like, did you get your kids involved?
Sometimes,
And sometimes it was like, I'd rather just do this alone.
kind of they feel like, oh, mommy's doing yours thing.
Totally. That's great.
Right?
Who took up reading and was like, hey, I'm going to actually read a lot? No
Who,
readers?
who took up Netflix binge watching?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Amen, right?
Yeah, I
They
did
didn't
that.
stop recording those things, did they?
That's awesome. So no, we just wanted to you guys to know that we're coming alongside you in that this is a weird season of life. Hopefully we're almost through it. I mean, as I say that, who knows?
Who knows? Who's
But,
hoping? Here's
But
hoping.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I was telling Matt downstairs, like I got 3 doses of vaccine in me now, so I'm just doing it for the lollipop at this stage. But
Good candy at the end. Is that how it goes?
that's right.
So we do have a workbook in front of you. You'll see as you kind of go through it, it'll kind of follow along. We don't necessarily have slides, but the workbook will give you all that you need to sort of follow along with where you're going. And because they are full of wisdom, we are going to let these lovely ladies introduce themselves first, and then they're going to lead in our first little session that we'll do together.
We should probably introduce ourselves like who we are. I don't think we've all really introduced
That's
who we are.
probably true.
Yeah,
Well,
and like
ladies first.
they're probably looking at us like, who are you and what are you doing up there? Do you even have children? Which is probably a fair question. So I'm Jen, and this is Matt. Matt works at the church, and we have 4 children, and their age ranges are 11 to 17. We were really excited to team up with Natalie and Ron through this because they have 4 children as well, but they are at a different stage and they're younger. So it's kind of cool to kind of look back and be like, I remember that stage, and for her to be like, so what happens, 5 years after this, and what does it look like, and what's the difference, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm Ron and she's Natalie, and we have 4 kids. The twins are 8. Everest is 4 and Brady is 2. And for those of you in the room who maybe have known our kids growing up, like, yes, they are getting that old, I'm sure. Time just doesn't slow down for anybody, but Natalie and I, we always kind of desired to have a big family, and I think 4 kind of fits that big family vibe, especially in today's society, right?
Yeah, and it's enough. We're all happy with 4, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we thought it would be nice for us to have a variety of parents up here. So we, of course, have older children. They have younger children. We've taught parenting courses for quite a long time. And Natalie and Ron joined us at least one of them. But they also have 4 kids, and they're younger in age, and they have twins. So it's a different kind of a dynamic for the 4 of us. So we thought that would be helpful to kind of give a good variety of raising kids at different places.
Yeah, and also they homeschool, so they're like superhuman.
And we don't, because that sounds like a lot of work.
That's pretty amazing. Okay, so do you want to start? Let's start. All right, so when we came up with what we wanted to speak on, usually it's kind of like couples speaking together or whatever, and Natalie and I thought it'd be a little bit more fun if we kind of reflected on the mom side of things and the things that moms maybe struggle with in a different way. So although
I think this topic definitely applies across
Definitely.
the board to
But it was-
moms
yes.
and dads, but you're right.
Yes, but it was one of those things that really kind of hit me as a mom that
Absolutely.
I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, this is good. So question, at the end of the day, do you often reflect on the things that you never got done or accomplished during the day? Maybe you set goals for yourself. Maybe the new year came, January hit, and you're like, I'm going to work out every day. Or maybe you decided, I'm going to start implementing date nights every Friday. Or maybe you said, you know what, I'm really going to get that really good sleep app, and I'm going to sleep better at night. Whatever it is, that goal that you set for yourself, do you ever kind of get to the end of the day and go, I failed, and feel guilt? Moms definitely have this sense of mom guilt that is ingrained in us, like from the moment we begin to be moms. And this season has definitely made it worse. Things are harder to accomplish. Sometimes you feel like you've gone through the day, mentally you're just exhausted. You may not be physically exhausted, you may be, but you just feel like, okay, no more. For me in particular, there's just times where I want to I go to my bedroom, I lock the door, and I just need to just zone out and just with my own thoughts, and which is a new thing, which I've never had to do before. But I mean, it's a new thing in a new season. So we set these expectations for ourselves. And maybe, what are they based on? Are they based on the fact that you set these goals for yourself? Are they based on the fact that you see other people accomplishing all these really great things, and hey, what's wrong with me? I'm in the same stage of life, or maybe I'm in a different stage of life. I should have already done those already. Maybe you're setting those expectations based on the fact that you think that those people are setting those expectations and hitting them, and you're not, when that may not be true. So the one thing that I always tell myself is comparison is the thief of joy. Do not look at other people and other situations and think for a second that it's not stealing your joy little by little. Yes. Several years ago, I came across an article that mentioned that out of these 5 things, you are only able to succeed at 3 of them. A lot of people think, no, I could probably do most of these halfway and succeed. but it's not true. You can only succeed at 3 of these 5 things. And the 5 things are family, work, fitness, friends, and sleep. So family would be looking after your kids. Maybe you're in a season of your life where you're kind of stuck there. Family has to be priority because they're really, really young, like Natalie, and there's just really no other option. Maybe you're not in that stage and you can prioritize work a little bit more because your family life isn't as busy. Maybe you set these goals of fitness that you want to achieve. Maybe it's just hanging out with friends. That's really, really important to you, and you want to make sure that you keep up those friendships. And the one thing that seems to always kind of get tossed aside is kind of sleep. But if you want to do all 5, you can't do them all successfully. And we're here to relieve you of the guilt of that.
Yes. And at any given time, because I feel like, those are all, especially for someone like me who's a type A personality, Enneagram 3, and I like to convince myself that I'm capable of succeeding in all of these areas at once. And not to say that, I think that is, we see in people around us, in society, on social media, a big one for me, you see people doing all the things, and you think, well, if they can do it, then I must be able to do it, as Jen mentioned. But just when we were trying to choose some topics for tonight, about a month back, and they had brought up this article to us, it instantly brought, I don't know, it just affirmed to me the fact that I don't have to do it all. Because in the past, I felt like I have had to in order to succeed. This motivational speaker that I was really inspired for many years. She was a great person, and she spoke worldwide and wrote a few books and just really looked like she had it completely all together. And it's somebody who I just was like, if she can do it, I can do it. She was just an awesome businesswoman, and she had a few kids and what looked like a thriving marriage. And a few years ago, we were told that they got a divorce. And that was kind of just, I felt sort of a bunch of feelings in hearing that news, because it was, it was shattering news where you just feel devastated that this person who you felt so inspired by, and somebody who you sort of aspired to be, that she was in this place. But also, it made me feel more human, and made me it was a pivotal point for me in just thinking, okay, so for somebody who I looked up to in such a big way, she wasn't able, or there was something that had to give. And I felt like, okay, in that moment, I had to make a choice. Which areas am I going to focus on in this season of life? And which things am I going to let, not put as much priority and emphasis on? Which things do I value the most? And where am I going to put the most time and energy into? So, yeah, I really had to think through that. And that was that moment where I was like, okay, for me, my marriage and my family in this season are my top priorities. So even though I am I said, I do have so many big goals. We run a business from home, and I do have so many big goals of where I want to take our business. And I'm always dreaming up new dreams for that, and just for our family, and, travel dreams and all this kind of stuff. But just realizing that, okay, I need to figure out what needs my time and energy right now. And that is, we've chosen to homeschool our children. So we have them at home. And so for right now, I might have to put these work goals aside for a while. Fitness is another one. We both love to run. Jen and she runs, and I run too. But let's talk about that for a minute.
Let's talk about that for a minute. So I said to Natalie, I've seen you on social media, and I've seen you post running and what that looks like. And I said, it could be very easy if I didn't do it myself, to look and be like, oh, she's got 4 kids and she can run, why can't I? But what goes into getting to that point of your day where you can do it is a big thing.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah. I think that's it. People just see this, oh, wow, like they do it all. That must be awesome. And I must be failing so bad because I don't do all the things. But it really, it takes
It does.
a
And
lot
like
of
we both,
planning and time and energy. And you're putting other things aside when you
Yeah.
choose to do the thing you're going to do. Right? So you're...
totally. And we both had situations where we just discussed this tonight, where it's just like at the end of the day, of a long day, we prepped for it the whole day. And as soon as our husbands came home from work, we were dressed and ready to go, and we needed that 30 minutes.
Yes.
And sometimes it was just like you just fed the baby, you knew exactly how much time before you had to feed it again. And if they were 10 minutes late, it was like the worst thing ever. It's like, are you kidding?
Totally.
Like, I've
Yeah.
only got this small amount of time.
Yeah, and there were seasons, and earlier in our life when, when Ron was working full days out of the home, so a 9-to-5 job, and I had all 4 kids at home with me, homeschooling them. Obviously, I wasn't able in that season to go after, growing our business at the time. It was just in maintenance mode. But fitness to me became a priority because first of all, I had to just do it for my own mental health. Let's be real here for a minute.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was my outlet so he would come home from work and I just had this system where he'd walk in the door at 4:30 and I'd take off as soon as he came in. And I did that 3 or 4 times a week. And when you put that system in place, because that's what you're trying to, you're prioritizing in that season, then you just make it happen.
Yes. We're in kind of different seasons now, but for me, it was like friends and sleep were the 2 things that I could not prioritize. And there were definitely times where I'm like, if I don't work on these friendships, I'm never going to have friends later.
Yes.
And have that guilt. What do I do? What do I do? But I really just couldn't prioritize it differently. And that's just the way it has to be. But I mean, the 3 things that you choose do not have to be the 3 things that stay with you for the next 3 years. You can wake up tomorrow and be like, you know what, forget sleep, I'm gonna do fitness, friends, and work. And then the following day, switch it up. You just take your priorities and do it. For me right now, I never thought I could do any kind of career. When I was, when I had really young kids, I thought I'd never be able to have a career. So work would never be a priority for me. But now, where my kids are more independent, they don't need me as much. And instead of wallowing in that self-pity, I've decided to go for that career and go for things that are a little bit more for myself. And this season of my life has allowed that to happen.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say for me too, like I feel like friends when your kids are little friendships are hard to maintain.
They're hard.
They're hard because you want it.
Yeah.
And you desire it. But it's just, oftentimes I think for me too, it fits with, the season of life that you're in. So your friends end up being the ones who your kids are friends with.
Yes.
The parents that
Play dates.
Play dates.
Or they'd be like, do you want to hang out? And I'll be like, do you want to run with me?
Yeah.
Surprisingly, they do not want to. They do not want to run.
Yeah, trying to combine the different areas
Yeah.
to just make it work, right? So yeah, I guess we really just wanted to, share our own struggles in trying to balance all the areas and just coming to the realization. Now, there's a quote at the bottom of your page there, I believe it's put in there. The quest for balance is universal, but perfect balance is a myth.
Oh, we have a question. Christina. All right, Christina.
More
Comment, okay.
with the friends thing, it's really deceiving when you're on mat leave and you have the full year off with that baby.
Uh-huh.
And you're able to, do romping and play dates. And then all of a sudden that year ends and it just
Yeah.
Yeah, so for the people online, we just had a comment that said during mat leave, it's like very difficult transitioning out of it because during mat leave, you have time for play dates. But, once you leave that, all of a sudden that priority shifts and you don't have a choice because work just replaced it whether you wanted it to or not.
True.
I think that's interesting. I also think with owning your own business, you can't really... I owned my own business for a while, and one of the reasons that I really transitioned to try to find a job where I didn't have to work my own business and worry about it all is because I had to make it a priority. Otherwise,
Yes.
we wouldn't be able to eat. Like it was like there was no choice. So some of these things we don't have choice in. Some of them we do. I think it'd be really cool if at the table, if we just chat a little bit. There's a couple of questions there. To just go, how does this sit? Like, what are you thinking about this? Because I think this is very important at this time.
Yeah, and like no shame. There's some moms here that are like, hey, I'm prioritizing a career. Yes, you go and prioritize that career.
Yeah.
And in a different stage of life, you prioritize something different. I think there's no shame in whatever decision is made.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, as a parent, I kind of feel like I've put sleep on the back burner for 8 years.
Yeah.
And
Was that by choice?
I don't. Sometimes.
Definitely not by choice for the most part.
No, that's great. Any comments out here of ones that you would think you struggle with the most? Because I think that's an interesting one for parents. Sometimes we feel like we aren't very good at friendships, let's say, and we feel bad about it. And you're like, you know, any thoughts that you guys have in terms of what you guys might be struggling with, or online, just throw it in the chat. Some of those areas that you might be struggling with. Yeah.
So it's actually not on here, but I would say, like, as a mom, like, me time.
Me time.
I don't find,
Self.
I mean, I struggle with prioritizing some of these, but, like, most importantly, I find that I have a difficult time prioritizing myself.
Totally.
So for me, like, that's the most difficult piece. I can usually find time for all of these. I wouldn't succeed in all of them, but I can
Right.
fit all of them in a day.
Yeah.
But by the end of the day, it's me time. And I don't know if other moms do this, but I find myself, like, staying up at night later just so I have an hour to myself where no one's asking for something.
So you're giving up sleep.
Yes, I'm giving up. I find myself staying up late and I'm like, why is it 11 and I'm still awake?
Yeah.
No, it's getting early. But it literally is just to have, like, that hour. Like, I know some women do, like, baths, so they run, they do whatever.
Yep.
It's like that me time, so it tends to sort of migrate into some of these other.
That's
the toughest part.
Yeah, I
Love
could say
that.
that resonates with me because, you know, whether we want to or not, I mean, the kids go to bed at 8 and then you're kind of like, whoa, the house is actually quiet now. I can do what I want. Oh my goodness. And then, you know, you get going and all of a sudden it's like, oh gosh, it's midnight here. We better get to bed because those kids, you know, they wake up at like 6:30. Like, they never miss that. How's that possible?
And then the older they get, the later they stay up. And you're just like, and then like the worst is when I'm like super tired at 10 o'clock, but you can hear that the kids are still awake. Oh, and then you just lose that. Enjoy that little quiet time, you young parents.
So as an adult,
It slowly
that's when
goes
you flip
away.
it, right? That's when, like, because I was always growing up, I'd always be like, Dad, why are you up so early? Why are you up so early? That's it.
why.
You flip
That's
it.
it.
Yes.
You figured it out.
That's your me time.
Yeah.
I wonder if it makes a difference if you're introverted versus extroverted as well.
Yeah, so we have a question about introverted versus extroverted. Does it make a difference? Yeah, so maybe the friends comment is actually whether it's, you know, friends with other people or friends with me, right? You're like, it's almost like friend time. The other one
You are your own best friend.
The other one that I think might be missing from this list that we haven't added, especially in this kind of time where people are changing jobs, is school. I think that there's a lot of parents who are still working and they've still had to go back to school to maybe get some education, to change careers or whatever. And you're like, you have to fit those two in as well. Well, now where does the rest of it fit?
Yeah.
So I think it's good for you guys to know and not have to apologize. It was something that was freeing, at least for us, to go, okay, I'm not good at this. I'm not succeeding at this. And
Yeah.
you're here, so we believe that you're here because you want family to be a priority. So it's like that one's already filled.
Yeah.
Right?
But we're here to tell you, you're not supposed to succeed at all of them. Release the guilt.
Yeah.
So just, this was our discussion time, right? Discuss amongst yourselves, like
Yeah.
which ones are your top 3? So
if you
this is
wanna
where we have like little
break
like
into
discussion
tables,
time.
Yeah.
And
Or even
then,
as couples, it's interesting. You might have differing ones, and you go, but I want this to succeed, and you want that to succeed. Oh, that's why I get frustrated.
oh, right. They don't have pens.
They don't have pens.
Imagine that. Well, I hope that between a couple like
Checking out the workbook online. I'm not sure if Matt has that synced up yet, but just going through some of those questions that we covered through the first little while is going to be beneficial for you, and just to reflect on them, whether you're watching it with other individuals or whether you just want to like put this down on paper yourself so that you can set goals or maybe reflect on it at a later time, right?
All right, so if you are online, just let us know which one is the one that you're most struggling with right now. What about you, Ron? Which one are you struggling with, do you think, the most?
You know what? I've always kind of found friends in this stage of life to be really tricky. And, you know, I'm kind of more of an extrovert, but I go to the office, I kind of get all that energy out, and then I come home and I'm like, I just kind of want like this time to myself. And, you know, kind of, it just is that natural, like Natalie plan stuff, because I'm just very like happy-go-lucky. And then she'd be like, oh, we got plans with, you know, we're doing this today and we're doing that today. So I just kind of like, I don't put that time aside. I actually go curling every Monday night, the greatest sport on ice. All right, next to hockey.
I love it.
Next to hockey, of course. But that's kind of my me time, as you were alluding to. And you know, I'm friends with one of the guys on the curling team. So I kind of am like, that's my time for that. But I kind of want maybe an extra day or an extra, but in this season of life with the kids so tiny, am I just to say, here you go, Natalie, have another night with them? It's like going to a Mike Tyson boxing match, you know? It's just...
It's true, that's very true.
Yeah, for some kids, right? I mean, unless your kids are complete angels. Put your hand up if you got those angels here.
Wow, look at all the hands. Yeah, good for you
I
guys.
think an easy one for me to struggle with is fitness. It's one that I think we all want. I want to succeed at. I just don't find it that much fun. So it's really easy for me to push that lower on the priority list. So sometimes it's all of these are good and probably all of them are important. You know, and for some of us we need to go, hey, maybe we need to figure out how to make fitness fun. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can help. Yeah, we can help.
I know your idea of fitness fun. Natalie goes for these 5K, 10K runs, and she always wants me to go on these runs with her, and I'm like, you know what? I'm more of like a 2 or 3K guy. I'm just kinda... And she's like, it's 5 or it's nothing, baby.
Yeah, you don't want to do
Just-
less than 5.
Less than 5, and it just doesn't feel worth it.
No.
It's not worth my
What'd you do
time
today?
to get all
2?
ready. Yeah, no.
All right, so let's...
Climbing a flight of stairs.
And that's
There we go.
okay.
As long as I don't
That's
get winded
okay.
up the
That is
stairs,
okay.
Yeah. So yeah, let's kind of dive into the second session, and this is where we do the kind of stop comparing, start exploring. And in your workbook, you'll notice an extremely corny picture of the parents, and they're exploring. They got the arms out there, and that was my handiwork, the old dad cheese, throwing it on there. But no, I think it's really important. I mean, like as the girls kind of had alluded to earlier in the evening, this whole idea where comparison can really rob us of joy and can you know, it can fester within us. It can bring about feelings of jealousy, feelings of maybe hatred, maybe why do they get to do that and I don't? And you know, I even saw it a couple of months back when, you know, I saw you're flipping through the old Facebook feed and the Instagram, and you start to see these families and they're like skiing and stuff like that, and I'm like, man, oh man, I just like wish like my kids were old enough to just take them out on the slopes, right? Like, I mean, that's kind of like a freeing thing, and it's cool activity. I love skiing. But then you kind of start thinking like, well, if I'm so focused on that, and if that's kind of all I'm like trying to project within my life, I'm actually not really focusing on what I'm intending to do with my kids and how I can better connect with them, and how I can continue to develop with them and be the best parent for them. So if I get stuck on those ideas, that's obviously where it can become problematic. Now, comparison is not always a bad thing. I mean, there is positive comparison, and positive comparison is that kind of thing where, my kids love the Blue Jays, and they want to dress up like Bo Bichette and Vladdy Jr., and they want to like have, what's the thing that they put under the eyes for the reflection?
It's baseball makeup.
Yeah, it's baseball makeup. They pull the socks way up. They're batting. They take the batting stance like they do. And it reminded me of my childhood watching like Delgado and all those guys, Sean Green, and it was a cool time. And they're imitating that. They're, desiring to be like that. And those are kind of like positive comparisons where they're not so focused on bringing about change and stuff, but it's more of a change of inspiration. It's more of a change of like, I want to rip my shirt off like Hulk Hogan and be strong or something like that, right? But
well, I think for positive encouragement, like with my daughter, I don't know if you have multiple children. My second daughter, Sophie is her name. She is driven to do as good or actually better than her older sibling. And it's like, it's not always a negative thing. Like, hey, I want to get better at grades because I want to, kind of compete. I'm comparing myself to my older sister. I want to do better. So some of these things can be a positive motivator. But there's also the negative part of comparison that we really have to watch.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing, is like you need to know kind of what's healthy and what's not, because certainly if you start going down the rabbit hole of negativity and you're just always putting that within your life, it can really leave you depressed and deflated and whatnot. So negative. The problem with comparison is it really breeds a competitive nature, and for a lot of children that is not effective. For a few it may be. Like Natalie and I have the twins. There is not a day go by where there's not a conversation of competition, or who can finish their piano songs in the best way, who can score the goal, or who can throw the basketball through the hoop the most consecutive times. Like, they are just so wired in that way. So the comparison between the two actually seems healthy. Now, there is at some points, and Natalie, maybe you can allude to this, where sometimes one twin can become defeated because, hey, I'm not nearly as good as this twin, or I messed up once or twice. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I would agree with you there. Like, there's definitely, I don't see a problem with it most of the time. It's just a natural thing that happens between siblings, and especially twins, right? They're just always looking to each other and pushing each other. And like you said, I think that can be a positive thing when they're pushing and encouraging each other in that sense. But yeah, we really try and watch out for that, and really try in the way that we encourage them and speak with them outside of them just always being together. So we always, if we see something that's going on that just seems a little, one of them is struggling, we'll just try and use some positive reinforcement there, and just a positive encouragement with the one that's needing that extra.
Well, I think in this season, it's like, it's not just kids. I think it's also as parents, comparing ourselves to other parents. It's a real problem. I find myself doing it. I mean, I can remember, I think this past weekend, the Young family actually went away to a cottage, and I was like, I'm at home kind of struggling to go, how can I get my family to do something all together that's like this family thing? And you're like,
didn't fit in the suitcase, man.
I understand. But you're naturally comparing yourself and going, I'm lesser in this moment, or I'm better in this moment from other parents. And we're often forgetting that we were never meant to be in any other scenario. We were meant to be in the scenario that we're in with the kids that we have, with the whatever situation, life situations that we have. And often comparing can really discourage us, as opposed to something where we go, parenting is just an exploration. Let's just examine. Let's take it up as an adventure, not a comparison.
Well, and I think that more than ever, right? Because of social media, like what if these social media platforms didn't even exist? You wouldn't even know that we went away anywhere, right? And that's the kind of thing where you hear about it then in talking to people, and like as humans we're such social beings, but this whole idea of just scrolling and throwing a like down and stuff like that, it really takes us away, and it's easy to go through the feed and just see people on the beach in Jamaica or something like that, and you're just like, oh man, what am I doing wrong, right?
Or you see someone else's child succeed and get an award at something, and you go, why can't my child do that? I know for a lot of us, and then sometimes you're like, oh, well, I'm going to try to fit my child into someone else's mold, and when it doesn't fit and it doesn't make the same result, we just go, I must have failed, or my child must have failed.
Yeah.
Or something must be wrong in this equation because, they got this award and my child didn't. And we have to always remember, and I think in this season, we need to be encouraged to really stop comparing ourselves, our situation, our kids to other kids, because parenting is meant to be an adventure. It's meant to be a journey of discovery. And this is, I think, what actually makes, at least for my wife and I, this is what's really made it enjoyable. If we were like, what was the fun with parenting? It was discovering what our kids were, who they were, and who we as parents were, and how that relationship sort of developed.
Well, and it's cool because, obviously your kids have grown up, and, we're still dealing with the young kids where we're still understanding them. But the whole thing, just to kind of wrap up the comparison bit, is that the comparison factor actually takes away from the unique characteristics of your family. So all of a sudden you get stuck focusing tunnel vision on one certain thing, and you lose track of, hey, my kid is actually very unique in these ways. I need to make sure that I celebrate that with them. I need to make sure that I'm enjoying that with them, because, hey, isn't it like in the blink of an eye and it's just gone, right?
Totally is.
Yeah.
Totally is. Here's one that, I don't know where you guys are at, but there's lots of things we can sort of bring up as a little bit of examples to trigger this in you. Have you ever wondered, hey, does my child have more screen time than that child? It's like something that goes through your head, and all of a sudden, you're comparing your situation with someone else's and going, well, theirs must be right if it's less than mine, and mine must be okay as long as it's less than theirs. Yeah. And it's like, is that really the measure of success? I find myself doing it all the time. And I think it's just, we need to really remind ourselves that it's not this black and white. There's not one way to raise a child, because there's not one child to raise.
Well, and what do you find yourself comparing, on a daily basis? Is it something like rooted within you that, you feel dissatisfied with, but that, perhaps you can work on in your own ways, right? Like, I don't know, like, there's people my age who are wealthier than me, and I'm like, wow, like, I work really hard. I want, like, an awesome house, and, but what is within my control now that I can actually start maybe making some financial goals with? Is it, a career? Oh, they're doing what they love. I guess I missed the mark. Well, you have the ability to change that. You have the ability to control what you do and where you go and what you learn and where you apply to and your skill set. So perhaps it's just things that you need to look within and start to make those small gradual changes so that eventually you can get to where you need to go.
Yeah. So within yourself, within your little group, within your family, it would be good to take some time, whether it be today or whether it be another day, to just kind of go, what do I find myself comparing? As you're watching social media, as you're, going through your week, it'd be really good for you to just go, oh, there, I caught myself. I compared myself with them. And it may even be positive, but it's not always going to give the best reaction out of you. And so it's like, I think it's just important. Take that time during this week. So what we thought would be fun, because the whole principle is stop comparing and start exploring. We really want today to be an encouragement for you guys and for us, to be a reminder that our parenting journey is about exploring the situation that we are placed in, exploring the children that we've been given to take care of, and explore it within the parameters that we can actually do. So we thought it would be fun. We're going to do three different kind of sections of comparison. Each one's going to get a little bit deeper into understanding who our children are and who we are, and kind of what the value is of those uniquenesses. But the first one we thought that we would start out with is, in one word, so here's a challenge. In one word, describe the temperament of one of your children, or all of your children if you have them. And it'll be interesting, if you are in a couple, to see if you guys pick the same word or a similar word to describe your children. I found that even with me and my wife, depending on which ones were most alike and which ones were not alike, it actually changes how we see their temperament. It could be positive, it could be negative.
Yeah.
So we'll give you an example for us, because we'd like you to do this at the table, just so you get to know our families a little bit better. So my oldest, of course, this is a typical oldest thing, she's determined. That would be a word that I would describe her with. She will achieve no matter what. She will do what needs to happen. Sophie is very strong and creative. So it's like, she loves to debate right now. So she's 15 years old, and she loves to debate. Someday she's going to be on a lawyer stand and like, just going, nope, this is my opinion and this is what's going to win today. Caleb is very sweet, soft-spoken, and very cooperative. And then our youngest is Jackson, and we would describe him as generous and sensitive. What's interesting is we would describe this now, but when they were younger, we used to like almost argue about what the temperament of our children were, and it felt really weird. It's like, don't we know our children?
Yeah, but they're different with different parents, right?
They totally are.
So the one that you're most like tends to get along with me a little bit better, and vice versa. So we would maybe describe them with different words.
Totally. So why don't you guys just give us your 4 kids and what their temperament might be, and then we'll invite you at your tables to. We put a list of characteristics in that book. If you want to sort of start thinking about what would be yours in yours, and if you're online, to do the same.
Yeah, absolutely. So for Skylar, we found that he's like the sensitive helper type. Like I don't know what it is with twins, but it's that whole idea that I was out of the womb 20 minutes earlier than you. So I have this like, I need to be the solid leader amongst the children. Mm-hmm. And I just know when we talk to him, he really takes stuff to heart, and he's sensitive and very helpful.
It's so funny that even though they're twins, like you can see that like first child like kind of role in Skylar. Like Ron said, it's crazy. Like he just automatically took on that role.
Yeah. Bryson's fun loving. Like Natalie, you can speak to this because he's just a ball of energy, and he likes to have a great time.
Yeah, fun loving and almost like our little comedian of the family, I'd say. Yeah.
Never takes anything too hard, and is always very fun. Everest is probably the one that we struggle with the most, because he is just so determined, and as much as people think, oh yeah, you had twins, that was your first exposure to parenting, they were actually easier than the one.
Oh gosh, Ron and I thought that we had done something right when we had the twins. We were like, you know what? We have this parenting thing nailed. Like we had twins, and we were getting compliments about their behavior when they were 2, 3, 4, and then Everest came along, and we were like, cool, wasn't us at all. Wasn't us at all. He's the best. We love him to pieces. He's a determined, and we always say he's our leader. He's the leader of the family. He's just very strong-willed, and the kid knows what he wants. And we always say, you know what? His characteristics that are the hardest ones now, they're going to take him places someday. So
yeah, he goes rogue a lot of the time, and has his own ideas of what needs to happen, when it needs to happen. So There's a lot of having to repeat ourselves as parents, and yeah, he's just determined and set in his ways. And Brady,
We're still figuring him out.
still figuring him out. We're gonna say adventurous, but that's just simply because
He's
he
an-
looks at all of his brothers and he's like, I'm gonna do what this guy's doing. He's jumping off the coffee table, and we're kind of like, you're well 2 now, but you know,
You're 1 year old.
this is
Don't
not
do
a good
that.
thing.
And as they get older, they do get a lane, and they start forming more and more and more.
Okay.
So take a few moments at your tables, share with one another kind of who your kids are, and what one word is that you would describe. See if it's the same. We're just going to chat with the people online while you guys kind of do that here in the room.
Speaking of online, a big shout out to Mitch, who's putting the production together tonight. So he's doing a fantastic job, and we want to thank him, of course.
Yeah, and if you are joining us online, you'll notice that when we talked about those, we didn't actually repeat very many between our family and your family. It just shows how many uniquenesses there are in children.
Yeah, and you know what? It's funny, when we were talking a bit about some of these characteristics, and we put them on the paper, Matt, it was like, well, why would I want to call my kid clumsy or impatient or bossy? Why would I want to do that? Well, sometimes, you just got to deal with the cards that you're dealt, right? I mean, it could be in a season. It could be that they're coming through that. It could be that maybe my kid just is clumsy. Maybe he's going to be the one who trips over the cords with the sign next to it that's pointing and says, don't trip over these cords.
And I think there are seasons where we really, really struggle with one child, and sometimes it's hard to find that key positive word. You're like, no, there's some of these words, it seems like I'm being not nice to my child, but it's not that. It's just, this is the experience in the moment that I'm having. You're very strong. If any of you have a strong-willed child, that's seen as such a negative quality, or if you were to say that was their temperament. But a strong-willed child becomes a very determined leader when they are raised in a way that allows them to understand that concept, and when they're raised to honor authority, respect authority, but to know where their voice is most needed and most potent. So it's like we have to be okay with ourselves, understanding and being honest about what it feels like in our relationship with our child at this time, and know that it's just at this time. It's not determining the forever future of your relationship.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing that we can, dangerously get stuck in, right? It's like, oh, my kid is, very hyper, and that's always going to be. Well, no, it's not always going to be like that. It might be, and are you okay with that? Sometimes you have to say, yes, I trust you, God. I know what you're doing is good, and I love this child, and I know you love this child, right?
And the truth is, your adventurous child, that's like the one that's willing to do everything daring, is the one that keeps you young. So
exactly,
you could just thank them for.
He's also the one on these high definition cameras. You can see this gray, and the gray is coming in here. So.
Yeah, check out my problem.
Yikes! I don't
got a big white glow.
I don't want to go to your household. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, full head of hair when we first got married.
Yes.
So, yeah.
It's, you know what? I don't know if
That's
I
where we're
remember
headed.
you
Cool.
so
it's all good. We learn to adapt and to just explore the journey that's before us, even without hair, whether it's with or without hair.
absolutely.
So let's move on. We're going to move on to kind of the second area where you can really find uniquenesses in your child. So temperament, we would go, that one is, let's say, a grade 1 question in parenting, right? So now we're going to go to like a grade 3, where we're going to let's delve a little bit deeper. Let's look at the idea of love languages. Now, I know a lot of people, this isn't a new concept.
No.
This has been around for many, many years. Many couples have done it with each other, and you know each other's love languages, and most likely your love language is completely opposite to that of the person that you married or that you're with, and you're going, oh, that was a fantastic discovery. Now I know that everything I'm meaning to love you with is actually not meaning anything to you, and everything you're trying to love me with is actually not sitting with me at all, and I'm missing them all. So I think it's been great in marriages, but it's interesting when it comes down to kids and go, where does love languages fit into our kids. Because the concept of love language is, how does my child fill up this hypothetical love bank? We all know that we are better when our love banks are full. And when our love banks are empty, we really don't act our best. We're not our best selves. We often react to things very negatively. We become maybe very down. We become very sensitive to all sorts of comments. So how does this work with children? So as we kind of explore each one, I want you guys to sort of, those listening online and in the room, to think through your children and go, where do I think my child fits in these? At the end of this, we do have a link to a test that you can do to discover better. Understand that young children, they need all of these, and you'll almost never be able to, when they're 1 year old, figure out which is their love language. But it is still fun. Remember, parenting is an adventure. So it's still an exercise in exploration. Find out when they're not feeling well, not doing well, what it is when you give them certain types of love, how it reacts to them. Like, one might fill them up really quick. One might fill them up, but just not quite as quick. So with young children, it's very explorative. It's really hard to define. But as your kids get older, it's very important to discover what really makes them tick. So the first one.
Gifts. Hey,
I
who
like
doesn't
gifts.
like receiving gifts?
So here's the funny thing with kids. It's like, whose kid doesn't have the gift love language? Whose kid is okay with
Right.
not receiving a birthday gift
I was
on
thinking
their
that
birthday?
exact same thing.
No, that's, I mean, like, gifts come in many different forms, right? But usually for young children like we have, it's obviously in the toys, in, you know, the cards, in the games and stuff like that. And yeah, you always want to make sure that obviously they're treated to a special gift on a special occasion, like a birthday, or perhaps Santa Claus is going to leave them a gift under the tree or something like that. And yeah, it's exciting. It's something that's something that they can hold on to and play with, and it brings them joy. So that's an easy one. But for some people, they like receiving gifts frequently, and there can be almost like a cautious area there, because you don't want to certainly overgift. It's like, oh, they said they want this, I'm going to go get this. There's parts of me, and Natalie, I don't know if you can speak to this as well, but I'll listen to something that they say within the store, and I will remember that 5 months later and be like, that's what I think we should get them. So it's almost like a...
Well, so you have a memory I don't. That's good
Yes,
for you.
I do. Yes, I do.
That's very good. The other thing that's interesting, I think, is although every kid likes gifts, I think what really differentiates whether gifts is their love language is, does the value have to be high for them to love a gift? Or does the thoughtfulness have to be high for them to love a gift? And I think for people, for children especially, where gifts is their love language, it's all about the thoughtfulness. It's all about I can tell that you really did this on purpose for me. So we have a child, Jack, and the interesting thing, I would say that gifts is very important to him, although I'm not totally sure if that's his main love language. But the one thing we can tell is at Christmas time, he buys everybody in the family gifts, and he will remember exactly what he has given everybody from 1 year to the next, and you can imagine a 5-year-old Jackson gift is not something that I'm like, where do I put this? He
So
doesn't have a lot of.
nice.
It's like, it's so nice. But he put a lot of thought into it. He's like, hey, I went to whatever store it was, the dollar store, and with Grandma, and I got you your favorite chocolate bar. Remember that. He would expect us to cherish the wrapper. Like,
Yes.
remember that gift I gave you. It was my expression of love to you.
Mm-hmm.
So what's interesting with that is I think it shows that gifts play a different role. My other kids, most of them, would buy gifts, but they just do it to satisfy I guess it's Christmas, I have to buy a gift.
Right.
I do it so that I'm going to receive one that's better. So that's kind of the difference, I think, with love languages when it comes to that with gifts. So, think about your kids and which one does that sort of trigger, how old that.
Yeah, and for young kids, obviously they don't associate value with gifts, right? Like if you buy them a Lego set that was $100, it's probably not much different from the Lego set that was $50. So yeah, they don't tie oftentimes value to these types of things. They just want to know that there was a lot of thought put in behind it, and that they probably don't care if you drop $100 or $1,000. They're just happy to get something, right?
No, $1 is $1 million to
Yeah, exactly.
kids very, very young, right? So the second one, of course, is physical touch. Now, first thing, every single child, probably every single person, requires an element of physical touch in terms of connection with people. So there's no way that we go, oh, if your child's love language isn't physical touch, just stop touching them. No. They need physical touch. They need love. Dads, a reminder, your sons need physical love from us. Our daughters need physical love from us. It's a reminder of one of those things that no matter where they are in the spectrum of love languages, it's one of those things that I think is continually necessary for us to fight for and to remind ourselves. Because for some of us, maybe physical touch isn't important to us. So it's actually a reminder. It's like, oh, I need to make that one of those tasks on my task list, give my child a hug today. It's that important that I think we need to really make time for that.
Yeah, and there's certain elements like within our day-to-day where like if we're at the dinner table, we hold hands and pray. I don't know who else does that. Anybody? No? Yeah, I see a hand up over there. There you go. But like it could be something as simple as that. Or Natalie, speak to Bryson and his he loves physical touch. He loves cuddling.
One of our twins, Bryson, he's definitely high on the physical touch. Love language, and he's just a cuddler. He just wants to be on our lap. If we're watching a movie, he's the one who's on one of our laps, snuggling up. He likes to come in after we put the kids to our bed, and just snuggle for a bit. So just being attentive to that, I guess, and just the needs.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is that often it's different between parents, which parent it is. I know for my wife, our youngest, is very physically, likes to be held by her, but he doesn't often come up and hug me. Now I'll go and hug him. But it's like he'll look to go, oh, mom is, sitting on the couch. I'm going to sit beside her and really engage in that, whereas he won't with me. Whereas my daughter, 17 and 15, almost every day, they'll come up and give me a hug, and my wife will go, hey, what about me? I'm here. What's going on?
And they'll be like, you don't need one.
Yeah. So apparently I'm very needy.
Dad appreciates it more.
Well, and there is something to this, Matt, where, the kids who sometimes will act out are desiring physical touch. And sometimes they aren't getting fulfilled in those ways, so they might lash out and be like, haha, if I can do this, like they'll have to pay attention to me, and maybe I'll get affection and love this way. But obviously that can kind of be a difficult situation.
Yeah, kids will crave it however they can get it. So sometimes an aggressive kid might actually be somebody who's just really craving some physical connection, or that sort of an idea.
Yeah.
So that's physical touch.
Third one, words of encouragement. So encouragement and affirmation. So making sure that you're speaking words of life into your children, making sure that you're being an encouragement to them, that they're hearing it frequently, and not just the odd, hey, I think you did a good job on your baseball game there. You hit a home run. That's awesome. But that it's stuff where, hey, I saw you actually helping out your brother. Like, that was really cool what you did for them, or you shared your toy properly, or something like that, where they're getting encouraged in different ways, and they're hearing that from different avenues.
Totally.
Not just something where, hey, look what I did over here. No, it's like in the memorable times and in the times where nobody sees.
Yeah, and I think the one thing we have to remember with words of encouragement is for children where this is really high. Now, every child, again, needs all of these love languages. But where this is really high in certain children, any element of criticism can be taken really, really hard. So my love language is words of affirmation. And so criticism is something that I have to learn to really be able to receive in a lens that says, no, I know this person still cares about me. But with kids, that's much more difficult for them. And the other thing is, as parents, it's easy for us to encourage or to affirm our kids in the things that they achieve. So they come back with straight A report cards, or they had straight C's and they got, straight B's. And we go, hey, I'm going to encourage you and affirm you in these things, in the fact that you achieved this. But the most important part with the achievement is acknowledging the process that a child goes through to get to whatever it is that they achieve at, whether it's in sports, or whether it's in school, or whether it's in piano, or whether it's in acknowledging the fact that it's the process that you want to encourage them in.
Yeah, absolutely. And Matt, before we go on to the next one, now that I know that's your love language, I just want to tell you, I think you're doing a bang-up job on this seminar. That's for sure.
Now you're going to tell me yours is physical touch. I'm going to give you a hug. All right.
No. The next one.
Well, no, the other thing I think that you need to understand for kids with encouragement is that a child whose love language is words of encouragement, your words need to be very sincere.
Yes.
They can tell.
100%.
They can read right through you, whether you are being sincere about it or whether you are not being sincere. And so as parents, we really have to look for those moments of sincerity that we can speak those words of life. That's when you'll see their love bank fill up really quickly because they go, oh, you noticed it.
Yes.
A few examples that I can give are when you see your child encouraging another child and they don't know you're watching. So those moments where they don't know that you're in the room or that you're watching them and you see them do something that shows something in their heart that you go, I need to affirm this in you. I need to show this. I need to speak this into you. It's those moments that really fill up that love bank of words of encouragement. So
And what's cool too is I've heard one of my kids say to another of our kids something that I might have said to them through the day and not even thought was that important or that meant that much to them, and repeat it to them later, like, oh, Mom said this, and like they just took so much from that, and it just meant so much to them that it makes me stop and think, like, oh, like so I need to do a better job at doing more of that. Like that really meant a lot to them, you know.
And oftentimes as parents we forget that we have, like, you can write them letters in their lunches.
Yes.
That are very sincere, very specific to whatever they might be going through or whatever they need to hear in that moment. Those are great ways to fill up that encouragement love bank. Or text messages, depending on where your kid is at, you know they're going through. These text messages are great ways. Again, we have so many ways. It's not just, out of our mouths to them, although we need that as well. But there's so many. Be creative.
Yeah. The next one, acts of service, and this one's kind of a funny one, right? Because as parents, aren't we serving them at all times?
All the time.
Like we make the meals, we do the dishes, we clean the rooms. Like,
Is there anything else we can do for you?
right? Like,
Yeah.
Don't you know that I love you, yet?
But this one is something that where you're kind of going out of your way to do for them and know something that perhaps they enjoy, something that maybe you don't commonly do, and you're going out of your way. And then there's also that encouragement of, you know what, you're a part of this family. I want you to help chip in, right? Like I know we'll always get them to do the dishwasher and the boot mat and stuff like that and organize and help out. So it really creates that environment where they feel like they need to be bought in, they need to be engaged, they need to be a part of the family that is contributing because, you know what, the mess doesn't clean up itself. It's like...
Yeah, one thing I found with having older kids with this, when my daughters are going through weeks of exams and studying and their rooms are absolutely destroyed, and I don't usually like ask them to clean their room every day, but on Saturdays I'm always like, tidy up your room. But if they go through, a few weeks of exams, to go in there and just clean up their room and make their bed, it's been received really, really well. That they'll come home a few times and they'll be like, oh, you cleaned this for me, thank you, just because like that's kind of over and above and different from what we usually do. But that for me, that is one act of service that I know that they appreciate, which is easier to do with older kids.
It's much easier with older kids.
I was going to say my boys wouldn't notice. They
No.
just go in there and pull it all
I think
apart.
we've only noticed this maybe in the last 4 years, maybe.
Yeah,
and it's
that's awesome.
It's when they start getting into high school or helping with homework. That's another one where you take the time to read over their essays and sit with them and really try to work to create an achievement. It's those acts of service that they start to notice. So as your kids are younger, you'll have a hard time finding this to be in there because you're already filling that bank up because you're their parents.
And I think you have to be cautious as well because if you're always doing stuff for them, they're going to have this learned helplessness where it's like, I'm just always going to have clean clothes and I'm just always going to have, so then when they get to an age where responsibility starts shifting a lot more, all of a sudden, wait a minute, I don't have any socks? Like, I don't have clean underwear? Like, what's going on here? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the other one with this acts of service is you can tell maybe a little hint in your children if they're younger, not in high school, let's say, if they love to help you out. So they love to do things with you or for you, or they kind of that sort of thing. There's two things that could be going on. One could be the next one, which is they want quality time with you. So they're helping you to spend time with you. But sometimes it's also from this acts of service. They've really got a heart that says, I love to help. So that can be one little hint.
No, that's awesome. And then the last time, or the last thing is quality time. The last time is quality thing. I don't know what it is.
Time.
Here we go, quality time. Like he said. Anyways, you're doing a great job, man.
I'll give you a hug later.
Quality time is just basically taking that dedicated time, distraction-free time with them that they love and enjoy, doing something that they love doing. Or it could just even be having a conversation with them about, it's very deep, it's very meaningful, it's very much, look, like, let's actually just take this time aside. And Natalie, you've done a great job with the twins in having like those date nights with each one of them individually and sharing in moments with them. So I don't know if you wanted to talk about that and what that looks like.
Yeah, quality time. Yeah, so we've kind of I've tried to put emphasis as just being a mom of all boys. It's my desire to obviously maintain connection with them as they grow older and become, teenagers and young adults. So I've made it a point since they've been really young to foster that special one-on-one time with them. So I do make a point and when we had less kids, it was a lot more often. Now it's not as often. But I was trying to do like once a month with them where I would just take them out for even just 20-minute little dates. We'd go and get a drink at Starbucks together and sit on the patio and just have some one-on-one time. And to them, it was so special. And to me, it was so special too. But I just wanted to foster that connection time so that when they're teenagers, it wouldn't be abnormal for me to say, hey, let's go get coffee and connect. So we've really tried to put focus on that, and I've started to do that with Everest, our middle one, as well. And Everest is somebody who quality time, we've really noticed, makes a big difference for him. And I don't know if it's being the middle child or just his personality in general, but he's a different kid when we make that time to just spend one-on-one time with him. So I've really noticed a difference with how he, that's probably one of his bigger love languages for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, one of the hints I think for if your child it's craving quality time is you feel like sometimes it's an interruption. So you're doing maybe your me time or you're doing something and your child comes and they just want to be a part of what you're doing. It's not that they want to interrupt you. I think it's just that they're craving this kind of quality time. But for us, we're often like, well, this isn't my segmented time for us to spend quality time. But that's kind of what they're looking for. So before we run out of time too much, there is a quiz on there. If you have children, go to the quiz, take it. Again, just start exploring what is it that fills my child's love language, and asking the question, how full is my child's love bank?
Yeah.
In other words, are they filled up enough to really be able to be their true self? Or is their reactions partly due to the fact that their love bank is maybe a little bit low? And in seasons when, as parents, our work life or our lives is really busy, you will see that often your love bank in your child gets depleted. Not intentionally, you don't mean to. It just happens. And so I think we just need to sometimes be aware. The last part that I think we want to look at, that I think is the most important part in terms of uniqueness, is we've seen how we all have different temperaments in our children. All our children have different temperaments. We've seen that there's many ways to love our children, and they receive love in different ways. The last one is the concept of connection. It's asking this question: who do you believe has the most influence in your child's life? Whose voice do you believe is the loudest in your child's life? And I find it interesting because a lot of parents will say, I'm not sure I do. I think their friends might have a louder voice in their life, or I think their teachers might have a louder voice in their life. And it's important to know that as parents, in order to increase our voice in their lives, it's mainly done through connection. How do you connect with your kid? Now, this has everything to do with love languages as well, and it has something to do with temperaments. It's taking all of those things and going, how do I build time to actually connect, where my voice becomes something of has more volume in their life than anyone else's? Because you have the right, and you've been given the right to have the loudest voice in your child's life. You just have to grab, I think as parents, we need to remember, all it is about connection. And so then looking through your children and going, how do I connect best with each one of them? Because again, they're all unique, and we are all unique. I don't know about anybody else, but I am sure you can connect better with one child, if you have more than one, than you can with another child. You feel almost like bad about it. At least I have. And even in this time, there's some of my kids that I connect easily with, and some that I really struggle with. But I really work at going, I need to create that connection. How do I do this? And exploring new ways, because connection equals influence. Your influence is directly related to the amount of connection that you have in your child's life. So I thought it would be good. I'm just going to give you a few pointers for my own kids in terms of what connection has looked like. And then for you guys to sort of just process it in your own mind, to go, how can I connect better with each one? And again, age is a huge thing here.
Yeah.
The younger the kids are, you could be on the floor playing toys with them, and that's connection right there. That's absolute premium. But as they get older, it becomes very specific and very tailored to who they are. So my oldest, for example, if I want to gain connection with her, the best way to do it is in private. It's one-on-one with her. It's taking that time alone. And it's really focused often around helping her towards her achievements. So again, you see how this layer of how you love, how they experience your love, maybe is another way, a clue, into how you increase your connection. Right? So my daughter loves quality time. Well, now if I can layer quality time on with the kind of the ideas of her achievements and helping her to become better, that's how I've been able to. Now I've got to be very intentional on that. It's not something that I do accidentally. I don't accidentally go, hey, let's go one-on-one and talk about your achievements. This is how I want to create connection in your life. No. Parenting's not that straightforward. But it's that kind of an idea. Second child is Sophie, and it changes over time. When Sophie was younger, okay, I would try to do what I did with Ella. One-on-one, let's sit down, let's talk. And she would say, where is everyone else? I do not want to do this alone. So again, I'm like, oh man, what worked on the first one is not going to work on the second one. This isn't cool. Now I've got to try to explore and figure out what else we can do, right? And so trying to find new ways to connect with her. And again, it's all experimenting. That's why this whole parenting journey isn't really an answer at the end. It's a process of discovery. And that's where the danger of comparing really harms it. If you try to compare and be someone else's parent, or try to create someone else's kid, you'll never get there and you won't have fun. But if you try to explore your own child, and even when I was writing these things down, I'm like, that's a good question. Have I really figured out how to connect good with my second daughter? And then I was like, oh no, probably when she does things with me. It's again this quality time, but it has to be towards an achievement. So we will volunteer together, or we will maybe debate over things. She loves debating. So debating over things, but allowing, not trying to be right all the time, just allowing the debate to happen, and at the end going, oh my goodness, I don't know if I agree or disagree. I might have really messed this up. But it's just creating those moments where you're just connecting with your kid.
Yeah, and if you get comparing too much, it's kind of like you're forcing your own numbers into one formula.
Totally.
If this plus this equals this, it's like, well, that works for some families, but obviously it can't always work for everyone.
Totally. Our third one, it's exploring the things that he likes to explore. He's a very curious child. He loves Marvel, so it's like watching those YouTube videos about all the Marvel movies that are still yet to come, and pretending that I know what's actually going on, and like,
do you though?
I don't know. I don't know. Something about our multiverse and this kind of thing. I mean, I like it all.
It's getting
fun.
very complex, yes.
It's getting very complex. And our youngest one is very physical, doing things with them. So, playing football with them and tackling and all those kinds of things. So this idea of connection being so important in our way of influencing our kids. And it's not necessarily something new for you, but it is something for you to start to go, okay, maybe I can take some time. How do I connect with each one of my kids? Is there one that I connect with really easy and I just do it naturally? We have this reoccurring thing that we do, and therefore we're always connecting. And then there's another that's like, they're almost too much like me. I work better with somebody who's not like me. And then trying to explore, how can I connect? And then trying things.
Yeah, and I think sometimes too, it's like, it might be something out of our comfort zone. Like for me, having all boys, I legitimately need to get, playing sports. I need to be out there playing hockey and football and baseball. If, that's all of my boys, like connect obviously really well in that way. So, and that's not my favorite thing to do, but I've learned to, get my dirty clothes and get on out there and do those kinds of things with them.
Yeah, it's not about the activity always. We want the activity to be fun for us. But
Yeah.
sometimes we can't cross off the priority of fitness with connecting with each other. Can we do that at the same time?
Sometimes.
Excellent idea.
Exactly.
Yeah, our boys are really busy, and obviously, like they almost need that like physical kind of like let's compete or like let's do something physical together, and it's actually kind of fun. Like I work at a gym, and me and Natalie and all the kids have gone to the gym just on the weekend, and just like we set up like kind of a course for them, and we get to work out, and it's a lot of fun. So.
Yeah, so just I'm going to give a few little final thoughts just in terms of this comparison kind of thing, and then you can take a few minutes and just sort of think about it. If you're in couples, think about it with each other. If you're alone and single, thinking about whatever child that you might have and how do I connect best with them. Take some time, but I want to finish this because this is really the goal of what we're doing is stop comparing, start exploring, embracing the opportunity to discover how you can influence your child to become someone that reflects the values that you deem to be most important. Now we added another layer. Guess what? Your values are different than someone else's values. Mm-hmm. What you consider to be a big deal, someone else considers to be not a big deal at all. So when we're comparing, we're actually assuming that we have the same values with that person. So determining what you want, be really intentional about this is what I want my child to grow up to be. So we need to remember the results aren't instantaneous. The journey is often frustrating. I can definitely attest to that. But God did not make a mistake when he created your child, and God did not make a mistake when he entrusted that child to you. I think this is one thing that we need to remember. None of that was a mistake. The season has been tough, but God did not make a mistake when he said, I want you to take care of my child. Because remember, first and foremost, our children are his. He did promise these things. He promised to strengthen us, to lead us, to forgive us, and to sustain us and our children, even when we fail. Mm-hmm. This is one thing that has been really freeing for me. The fact that I will fail. Mm-hmm. God knew it. Mm-hmm. He actually is the one who sustains them. Mm-hmm. I'm just the one that's given a season to influence them. So I think we just need to really remember that. My wife and I are often surprised at the times when God has intervened in our child's lives. He loves them more than we could ever love. And although he entrusted them to us, he knows our weaknesses and he promises to remain faithful, even when we fail. And so there's many times where all of a sudden our kids will come home and we'll have a conversation, or we'll see them doing something, and we'll be like, I don't know that anything that I did led to this moment and you doing this thing. It could be being nice, stepping in a moment where you're like, you're being far more kind than I could have ever thought that you could be. I couldn't have parented you to be this kind in this situation. And we can just look at each other and go, the truth is that God did this because it's God's child. And he actually knows who he wants them to be. And it's our job to just explore what God wants them to be, who God wants them to be, and to just go through that journey. So I hope that you guys feel encouraged. If you have any questions, comments, we're definitely here to help you. On your sheet is my email. you are more than welcome to contact me, to ask questions, to reach out to one of the pastors. For some of you, the one thing that we really value here at Gateway Church, it's the idea of connect groups. It's kind of situations like this with a group of people exploring in similar stages of life or in different stages of life, and just exploring life together and doing it together and caring for one another. Connect groups is one of the main ways that we do that. So on your workbook, you'll see Pastor Cheryl's email is on there, and there's a way to connect if you go onto the website. To connect with other people. If in this group you're like, hey, I would love to reach out and connect with one of you guys, please do it. Remember, you're all here. You all value parenting, so you have at least one thing in common. That's one thing I can encourage you. And the other thing is we recommended on that book a course that you can find on Right Now Media. We've taught this one for several years. It's called Intentional Parenting. If you are in a connect group, or if just as a couple you want to explore, hey, how do I become an intentional parent that has the end in mind? I know what I want my child to become. I just want to be intentional now to process it. This is a great course that will really help you find another couple to do it with, and you'll find, I hope that it would be a real blessing to you. Again, on the website, there's lots of information. Or if you want to ask us anything, please ask us anything. Thank you so much for being a part of this night tonight. If you're in person, we're not asking you to leave right away. Please explore that question. How do I best connect with my child? Just take a few minutes to think about it. Yeah. And if you're online, we thank you so much for joining with us. We pray a blessing over you. We pray a blessing over all of you and all of your families. We know that our God is someone who can sustain us in everything that we're going, and that includes our parenting journey. I pray that you will be blessed.
Amen. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so if you are in the room, by all means ask us questions.